So right now we're going to take some notes on circles. Hopefully we already see how the equation of a circle works in regards to how the center and radius are used in it. So let's see. So we are going to identify the center and the radius of circles. We are going to write them in standard form. This is the standard form, the standard equation for a circle. Center, radius, or if there are point or points on a circle. And of course, we are going to graph them. So here's your basic equation for a circle. Hopefully you recognize that to find the center, we are going to use the numbers that are here with the x and the y. And we are going to take the opposite of what we see here. So instead of negative h, we're going to take h. The opposite of what we see here, instead of minus k, it's just going to be k. So your center is hk. So we always think in our heads, opposite, opposite. The radius we find from this number, and whatever number it's equal to, you're going to take the square root of that number, and in this case, the square and the radical cancel out. The radius is equal to r. So now, if you are given this equation, then what we would remember, just like here, we said opposite, opposite. So your center is going to be 3, 4, and your radius is going to be the square root of 9, which is 3. The center over here is going to be, well, there's no numbers with the x and the y. When there are no numbers, then it's going to be zeros. 0, 0, and your radius is going to be 6. So now down here we have to write the equation from the graph. So we have to locate our center. Here it is, and this center point has ordered pair negative 2, 2. And then we have to find the radius. Well, we can go right to this point here, 1, 2, 3 units. R is equal to 3. So if your center is negative 2, 2, and your radius is equal to 3, then we can plug that into your equation. So that's going to look like this. Okay, so that's the basics for your equation. Opposite, opposite, squared. Because whenever we take them out, it's opposite, opposite, square root. So that's how it would go back into the equation. Okay. The other side. So now we're going to write the equations given the following. So now we're going backwards. Now we're going to write the equation. Hopefully we remember what the equation is. Minus k squared is equal to r squared. So we kind of can set ourselves up here. That's what it's going to look like. I have x and y, opposite, opposite. Oh, look, I'm just going to put the 0 there for the moment. And then I have to put this in. I need to square it. So I have to type in my calculator, 7.1 squared. And when I do, I get 50.41. I'm going to neaten this part up right here, and I'm going to say that that's x plus 4 squared, and it's just going to be y squared by itself is equal to 50.41 over here. We're given our center, so I can kind of start with this. Opposite, opposite plus 1 squared is equal to, well, this time they didn't give us the radius, they gave us a point on the circle, so I'm going to say equals r squared. This is an ordered pair. It's a point on the circle. These two numbers here represent an x and a y. Our equation so far, we've substituted in for a couple of our variables. Up here, see there are 5. There's x, y, h, k, and r, so there are 5 variables. We plugged in 2 of them. That means we have 1, 2, 3 variables left. If I plug in for x and y, My only variable left is r, and I can solve for r. So if you can substitute in any equation, all except for one variable, then you will be able to solve for it. So I'm going to plug in for x. So that's 1 minus 5 squared. Plug in for y. 2 plus 1 squared is equal to r squared. 1 minus 5, that's negative 4, but negative 4 squared is positive. 16 plus. This is 3. 3 squared is 9, and that's equal to r squared, and that's 25. So here's what we need to recognize. So a lot of us would automatically, or some of us might say, okay, well then that means that r is equal to 5. And yes, that's true. And if they were asking us to find the radius, that would be our answer. But the question says, what's the equation of the circle? So let's go back to our original here, because we almost had it. So I'm going to rewrite this. That's going to be x minus 5 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals, and that has to be r squared, which, by the way, is this. So you didn't even have to do that extra step of taking the square root to find r. I'm just going to plug that in there. But sometimes we like to do that just because it makes us feel better. But there's that. Last thing we want to do is be able to graph a circle. So that means, so here's like an equation. We want to look in the equation and identify the center. Opposite, opposite, -2, +3. And you have to identify your radius. It's the square root of this number, and that's 3. So your center is at -2 up to 3. And your radius is 3, meaning that we have to go 3 in every direction. Well, I can't do every direction, but I can do 4. I can count 3 units this way. 1, 2, 3 up. 1, 2, 3 left, and 1, 2, 3 down, and I can make a fairly decent circle as long as I kind of go through these points. It's not going to be awful, and that's how I can write the equation of that circle, or draw that circle.